in a sort of traditional sense, yes, it's my first sort of, you know, cannot leave the studio from dusk till dawn project. Because, you know, when you're an A&R man, you can go in, have a little sleep for half an hour and then leave and make out that you're the man. But with this project, Norman Jay was really good at that. He never used to be able to last more than 5 minutes in the studio before falling asleep. It was the kind of place where you could go and just kind of get away from the office and go to the studio and then just hang out and whatever. But anyway, this is the first time I was actually in the studio from the beginning till the end of the project. And I happened to do it in Havana, Cuba in summer. I mean, it's always summer, but it was extra hot. And it was 5 days in June this year. I mean, there was a little bit of air conditioning in the room, but not elsewhere in the studio. So just the control room had air conditioning and the studio had air conditioning. But they were really, well, the control room was really small. So you just have to go outside just to kind of get out and that was completely hot. But it was cool. I mean, you get used to it and you just drink lots of water. But then I was making the error of drinking a lot of rum at night, which is not good. And I mean, it's great, it's really good rum, but it's like it gets you basically, especially after a few days. But anyway, so yeah, that was it. 5 days in Egrem, which was amazing because it's such a sort of legendary place. And yeah, I mean, you know, it was a real challenge basically because we were going to kind of work on this project. I first went to Cuba in 2008, September, just to sort of check it out and to see if there was anything there that could really kind of, you know, grab me. And it was great, you know, and that's really when I had a kind of fast track 3-4 days in Havana, and I met most of the people who were on this album, from sort of Aguirre to Obsession to Aldianos and a lot of the singers and Fonseca, and we were going to do this project, and then the recession came, and I think the project was kind of put on hold for a bit because we were doing this with some support from Havana Club, the people who make the rum. And then in February, they called me, because I thought it was off. I thought it was just a nice holiday, really great, but that's the end of it. And then I think March or April, I got a phone call saying, no, we want to do the project. Can you do it like now? We need to get it out sort of this year. I was like, oh, I better looked at the schedule, and I had a couple of weeks off in June, which I kind of had aside in case this came through. And luckily Roberto Fonseca was available. I called him up and he was like, yeah, I'm really up for it, which is amazing because I had the daddy of Cuba when it comes to the rhythm section, kind of like the Robert Glasper of Cuba in a way, like the best rhythm section. And so he was like, yeah, I really want to do this project with you. I said, can you get me Egrem? He was like, yeah, I'll get on the phone. He got his engineer. So basically I just used Roberto in every respect. Music, I mean, he's the man, obviously, we all know that. And so he basically hooked it all up for us. I'll tell you what happened as well, which was what was lucky, was that I basically, it was really strange, but I was doing this club night in London on a Wednesday before my radio show. And one day in March, this boy turns up who's the tour manager for The Streets and for Massive Attack, who I know. And he introduced me to a guy who was with him called Vince, who gave me a CD of his Cuban project he'd just done. I was like, wow, this is good timing. And I spoke to him, listened to the stuff, and it was brilliant. And then I listened to, I called him up and I went, listen, you know, I'm doing this project in Cuba. I need you to help me kind of tie it all in. So he was a very important part. He was a co-producer on this. I just need to make that clear. And he and me and Roberto basically had to come up with this project. So the main idea was that I wanted this project to be a kind of history of my relationship with Cuban music, i.e. what was the first Cuban music that kind of influenced me. So I had to go back to the days of Irakira and the Electric Ballroom, where I used to play a track called Chequere Sun. And I'd go to Ronnie Scott's, because Ronnie Scott's did a lot of stuff in Cuba and luckily brought a lot of these musicians over. So Arturo Sandoval and Chucho Valdés and Irakira, all those people, I saw them all in London. So I had this like relationship with Cuba in my mind, and then really that was the starting point. And I just wanted to pull out a lot of stuff that I had in my collection, stuff on Egrem, old classic stuff on Cuban stuff, and I started putting together a CD, and then a few other non-Cuban things that were influenced by Cuba, so sort of blue notey things with congas and stuff like that, so you know, Cheno Pozo type stuff, Machito type stuff, things like Aphrodisia by Kenny Dorham. I thought it'd be good to do a version of that. And then I thought, well, Afro-Cuban, you know, let's do something which is African-Cuban. So let's try and put, because I remember there was this really good version of Shakara which Shakara, which came out on Discos Fuentes in Colombia, and it was a Colombian version of a Fela Kuti track, and I thought, well, it'd be really good to do a Cuban version of a Fela Kuti track, so that's why I thought us doing Roffa Roffa Fight. And then I thought, well, actually what we should do is we should switch up the vocals, so rather than have the straight up male vocal, we should go with some female vocals, and that's where we came up with Mayra Valdez to do the female vocal on Chekere Sun, because the original version, the only version of it, has a male vocal. So just do little twists on originals, and that's why we also got Mayra to do a version on the Roffa Roffa Fight. And then, you know, the other stuff just came up at the time. I mean, the thing was, before we went in the studio in June, I had to do a documentary for the BBC, like the first 3 days. And in those 3 days, I was going back and meeting all these people that I'd met the first time to interview them. And so that's when I asked Aguirre and Obsession and Doble Filo to come and hang out in the studio and do some raps on some stuff and some spoken word stuff. And it was also when I was interviewing people that I met Danay, who's the amazing singer on this album, who is the real discovery of the record. And she basically, when I was interviewing her, gave me her demo, which had Individual on it, and it had the track No Parablas, which is on the LP. And I said, my God, this will be amazing for us to do a version of this on the, you know, on the studio recorded album. So I asked her, she was obviously delighted. And then I said to Roberto, I said, we've got this real, you know, do you know this guy called Danay? And he was like, I'm not sure, I don't think so. And he was a little bit dubious because, you know, he wasn't sure. Kind of, we didn't have very long to get the vocals down, and he wasn't sure if it would be, you know, if it was going to be a waste of time, basically. I said, no, she sounds amazing and she can rap as well, blah, blah, blah. And then she came down and she just knocked the tracks out. Like, I mean, it was magic. That was absolutely magical time. And Roberto's face, he was like, you know, I've been living here for however many years, and you know, you turn up and you bring me her, you know, and he was so happy. So that was like one of the great moments. I mean, the other great tracks, for example, was for me was La Révolution del Cuerpo, which was an original by Aguirre, but we basically got well, they were going to do a version of it with the band, and then as they were rehearsing it, there was a party going on next door at the Egrem Cafe, because it's like the studio's connected to the cafe, and it was a rumba session. And I went downstairs and it was so buzzing and exciting, and it was the Sunday and it was just electric down there, and I was like, my God, we should just do the rumba version of it. So we got the rumba, the drummers to come upstairs, and we just rumbaed it out with Roberto on the piano. So that's when the album became a bit more of a sort of Kip Hanrahan type of, you know, vibe. American clave. I wanted a bit of that in there. I wanted that sort of Jerry Gonzalez vibe in there as well. Although obviously we didn't have the trumpeter Jerry Gonzalez, but I wanted that kind of approach rather. I didn't want it to become a kind of Cuban jazzmatazz. I didn't want that at all. I didn't want it to become sort of just easy. I wanted it to be quite a challenging record, and that's why I think working it and doing it in 4 days was really great, because, you know, it didn't give us long. We had to work off it, and we had to be quick and make quick decisions. And as I said, it wouldn't have happened without Roberto, because he's just such an absolute don, basically. You know, he can play like anybody, and he's just got an amazing way with communication. No drinking in the studio, you know, it's good rules, you know, it was really direct and disciplined. And that was really good, you know, it made the project and the record work out, you know, really well, I think. I'm really proud of it.